Do not be discouraged if your product is not popular. And like, do not be discouraged if there's no users using your product. That's the point. Portion for investors, you have a portion for community, you have a portion for the actual product. They launch within a year and then they realize it's like, shit, like that doesn't even work out.
How important at the front end when you're raising are your tokenomics, the utility of the tokens in the valuation of Web3 projects?
There's no fixed framework around tokenomics. Tokenomics is actually the third most important on my list. So like I said, timing's number one. The timing also kind of, slash narrative, that's number one. Two is the team, and the third is tokenomics. And you'll be surprised, actually, the last one is actually product. Product is the least important, yeah.
It's important.
Well, it makes sense in this list, honestly, because if you have a great product, but the rest is garbage, then it doesn't matter how great your product is, because actually your product will be garbage. There's no scalability to it.
We've invested.
Like you could have the best product in the world, but if it's come out at the wrong time and nobody knows about it,
doesn't matter.
It's just a great product that no one uses.
Yeah. I mean, I think the point here is, a lot of people think a product is important, but it is important. But I think the point here is, do not be discouraged if your product is not popular. And like, do not be discouraged if there's no users using your product. That's the point. So in that sense, like, product is not important in the sense that if your people are not using your product, then you can always pivot and you can do something else, right? That's the point here, which is very common in Web3. But going back to your question about tokenomics, I think there's a couple of things that I think we look at when it talks about like tokenomics. Like, one is, like I've mentioned before, like, are they actually offering clear tokenomics when we invest? Because a lot of projects don't even have tokenomics when we invest, and this is also a very common thing in our industry, which is like they're doing an equity plus token warrant raise, and then they just don't have the tokenomics figured out. The question is, in what situation is that acceptable? And in my opinion, anything with a valuation lower than 30 mil.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And this is post seed, so they've already
this is
raised
like
a bit,
the first. This is like the first round or first 1.5 round. Like anything below 30 million. And again, anything below 30 million, because right now, if you look at majority of things that's happening right now in our industry, everything starts at like 70 million, 80 million, 100 million. So again, I'm referring to this current time. I mean, obviously, if the bear market, then we might be going for like anything below 50 million, right? Every different times call for different metrics, right? But the whole point here is referring to the benchmark in today's world. Then anything below 30 million, we can accept with no tokenomics. Because in our opinion, it just means that they're early. And by when you're early to a point that you don't have tokenomics, having tokenomics actually puts you in a spot where you'll be stuck. Because the whole point of tokenomics is that you want to be as close, your tokenomics should be as close as to TGE as possible. If you're designing a tokenomic that does not work with the time you launch, that's going to be an issue.
Yep.
And that's basically the risk here, right? So a lot of people have like tokenomics and then they launch within a year and then they realize it's like, shit, like that doesn't even work out. So they end up changing tokenomics. And we've seen that a lot in the past, right?
Yeah.
Or they just go for it and then investors get wrecked. We've also seen a lot of that in the past, right? So the idea here is, from an entrepreneur perspective, is like it's okay to not have tokenomics if you're super, super early. But okay, so the question now is, when should you have tokenomics, right?
Yeah.
So I think anything above 30 million, 50 million, you should have tokenomics.
Valuation.
Yes, exactly. You should have very clear understanding of when do you TGE. You should have like how many, if you have any cliff, do you have any, like what's your vesting, what's your lockup, what's your distribution? It's a monthly basis, daily base. How do you achieve all this? Like, is it done through airdrop, or does the user have to mint it? If they mint it, if they don't mint it, does it stake automatically? Like stuff like that, right?
And so would that also include like the utility economics behind like the token, like how it's being used in the platform, all these kind of things? Like, you want to see that too? Yes, right.
So that part of the utility in terms of the tokenomics, we usually leave it out until even closer to TGE. Yeah. So the way it works is like you always figure out the distribution for investors first. And then once you have that, then, I mean, usually it's like, there's like for example, you'll have like a portion for investors, you have a portion for community, you have a portion for the actual product. The actual product side, like we will work with them after we invest. Like a lot of times they don't even have too much clarity on how that works. And so
it's also really, I think really hard to and challenging to build a good utility tokenomics. At least from like
for sure.
that we've worked with, there's not many people out there that can actually do it. You need to have a finance background. You need to understand how, let's say, today's world works, both in Web 2 and Web 3, depending on where you're launching it, right?
Utility token is by far one of the hardest things to do. That's why people love meme tokens.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Meme coins are the best, right? Because you have no roadmap, you have nothing, you have no expectation. There's only upside, there's
pure
no downside.
Speculation,
yeah, pure speculation.